Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union, invested in you. I've got a spectacular guest today. The song says everybody knows Joel Goldberg. That's not the case. Maybe some in Kansas City, but a lot of people know my guest coming up. A quick shout out to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City, whether you're in KC or in Florida like my guest or anywhere around the country. If you do happen to need a resource, looking for a job, looking to hire someone, great culture company that gets people, which is so much about what today's podcast is regarding as well. Check them out, chiefofstaffkc.com. Making connections that matter. My connection today comes from my good friend, Dr. Michelle Robin, who's such a positive influence on my life and has been a guest on this podcast, a good friend, also my chiropractor, a mentor and advisor, and so much more. She said, "Have you had this guy on yet?" And I said, "No, but I know his work." Every now and then, a simple idea reshapes success. Today, I'm joined by a man who did just that, and in the process, pioneered an international movement. His name is Bob Burg, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker and acclaimed sales genius. But he's best known as the co-author behind the book, The Go-Giver, a little story about a powerful business idea that sparked a global phenomenon. Its message: when you give exceptional value, you enjoy extraordinary results. It's a subtle shift that changes everything, putting fulfillment within reach for all who lead and live. The book's been around now for, I think, almost about 20 years. It's still a phenomenon. I read it years ago, and I was just telling Bob that I got it the first time around, but I didn't really get it. I just reread it again the last few days because it's what my focus has been lately on giving. I just did my whole newsletter last month on the importance of giving, not charitably, that's important too, the giving mindset. And I get it right now. And I'm so happy to be joined by Bob Burg. Bob, how are you?
Hey, great, Joel. Fantastic to be with you. And, I was excited just, when I was asked to be on your show, but I also, because I know your history with the Negro League Hall of Fame, I had to wear my official Josh Gibson t-shirt,
Yes,
which I actually bought online on Twitter, on X, from either his grandson or his great-grandson, I'm not sure, but who really has done a wonderful job of carrying on the legacy of Josh Gibson. And so he sold these t-shirts, and Josh is like my hero, and so I had to get a shirt. So I was so excited to be able to wear it on this show.
I'm so happy to do that. I've got Satchel Paige over one shoulder and Buck O'Neill over the other. I'm a proud board member of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and I've heard their president, Bob Kendrick, numerous times say that some people say that Josh Gibson was the Babe Ruth of the Negro Leagues, and he says, but a lot of people said that Babe Ruth was the Josh Gibson.
I heard Babe Ruth said something like that. Like somebody said, Babe Ruth, what do you think of Josh Gibson? We're calling him the Babe, the black Babe Ruth, and he said, no, I'm the white Josh Gibson, or something like that. It was like a really cool story. And Ted Williams, I think, really went to bat, pardon the pun, but went to bat, just saying at that time that it was really doing such a disservice to Major League Baseball and everybody, all the fans, the entire country, to not be open, right? And that people like Josh Gibson could have just gone crazy, giving the fans really so much value.
I got to tell you, I'm so lucky to have landed in Kansas City in 2008, a little bit after the Go-Giver came out, and being in Kansas City, living a dream job, talking about baseball every day, but in town where the Negro Leagues were formed, and to have access to the museum and to have access to their dynamic president, Bob Kendrick, who is an extension of Buck O'Neill, who unfortunately I never got to meet, but I feel like I know. And now to be on stage a few weeks ago, emceeing with Bob their annual awards, which now go to, current or former big leaguers that are carrying on the legacy, and to be sitting on stage with Dusty Baker and Cito Gaston. I mean, it was Willie Randolph. It was incredible. So anyway, I did not have you on to talk about baseball, though. I have this feeling that you and I could probably just do 30 or 40 minutes on baseball in the Negro League, and you'd probably be happy with that. But I get to talk about that all the time. I was telling you that I reread the book because I knew I was having you on, And also, let's be honest, you can knock this thing out in a day, and even a slow reader like me, 2 days, and it's pouring through my veins. Why do you think this thing has been such a global phenomenon for coming up on 20 years now?
I think that one of the pieces of feedback that John David Mann was my co-author and really the lead writer, great storyteller. I'm a how-to. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. I'm like the most boring guy, but John's a great writer. And one of the things we first heard after the book came out, and it got off to a fortunately a really good start, is people would say 2 things. One is, this book gave me permission to live and sell and act and do business according to my values. Because I think it is an element of human nature that we want to make the world a better place. We want to bring value to what we're doing. We want to, in some way, touch people's lives, do something that's bigger than just ourselves, while remaining individuals, of course, do something bigger than ourselves. And as most people, they do that through their business. And now it doesn't mean you can't do other things and be involved in it, but a lot of our time is spent in our business. So when someone, let's say, sells a product or a service, okay, in that case, how am I helping another person by doing that? Now, when they can do that and earn a lot of money while they're doing that, what a wonderful way to live life and to do business, because it's not one or the other. And for so long, what were people taught? And this is, again, so many of the anti-prosperity messages that we're hit with, whether it's a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, cultural mores, certainly social media. There are so many anti-prosperity messages where, where to be successful, back in my day, I'm 67 now. So back in my day, it was J.R. Ewing was the guy who was, the mean, terrible, horrible business person who stepped on people's toes. And, that's what so many people unfortunately think. And it's a message they get. And sometimes they get it from the people they work for who buy into those messages. And I think that they saw this book as saying, no, you're not going to be successful in spite of helping others and bringing value to others. You're going to be successful because, as a result of bringing value to others, that money is simply an echo of the value you provide the marketplace. And I think people liked that message. And, the other thing was, there were people who after the book first came out, wrote to us and said, this is exactly what I did. This is how I built my business. This is how but none of my team members or salespeople or whatever believe me. Why? Because, again, they're all brought up with that idea that to be successful, you've got to do all these awful things to people, right? Instead of good things for people. So they kind of use the book as third-party credibility, to say what they wanted to. So I think that's why the message was received like that.
Yeah. And it's so relatable, but we've been trained to have our guard up. We've been trained to think we're being taken advantage of. We have those defense mechanisms, yet there's such a sweetness to Joe in the book, and innocence to him, that I think reflects most people, that they want to do good, but they feel like if they get caught doing too much good and giving away too much, that they're falling behind, that they're losing in the race, that they've got to compete. And, think about sports. We were just talking about baseball, and it's like, you're battling out there and you're trying to beat up on the other opponent. And I think we've all been sort of raised that way, that in competition for business, for the big deal, that it has to be cutthroat. And I'm not saying it's not, and I know you're not saying that it's not. I think that's one of the big things in this book too, is it's not just we hear a lot of, if you give to the universe will give back, which, by the way, I'm starting to believe that through a lot of meditation. But it's not just a simple, well, if I do it, it's going to happen. It's not as woo-woo as that.
Right.
I think, and there's something in the book that towards the end that you guys write about too, about how you do need to be, and Joe learns the lesson, you do need to be open to receiving. It goes both ways. There's a very profound moment in the book where Pindar has Joe exhale for, I think, 30 seconds. And he couldn't do it anymore. And it's like, no, but it's the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, right? You got to give to receive. You got to receive to give. There's a beautiful synergy to all this, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, and that was exactly it. You know, you breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. It's not one or the other. You know, if you try to do just one, it's not going to work out. So you give, which is value out, and you receive, which is value in. You focus on the giving. Okay, you plant those seeds. So, yeah, but you also willingly and gratefully receive that which you've earned. And I want to go back to something you said, which I think was a great point. You know, there's nothing woo-woo about this. You know, so when we say, let's say the premise of the Go-Giver itself is simply that shifting your focus, and this is really where it begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And now when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing exceptional value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well, but not for any kind of way out there, woo-woo, magical, mystical reasons, not at all. It's understanding that when you take your focus off yourself and you place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, how to help them overcome and solve their challenges, moving them closer to happiness, people feel good about you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you and be your personal walking ambassador. And so that's, you know, and when I used to speak at sales conferences, one of the first things I'd say is, you know, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. And they're not even going to buy from you just because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. Right? And why else would they? And so this is great news first for the person who really has a heart for service. But it also is good because what it says is, you know, and this is to the degree we live in a free market where no one's forced to do business with anyone else, right? It means that in order for you to receive and do really well, you've got to find a way to please your customer. You've got to find a way to bring value to others. And that's exactly how it should be.
You know, I wish I'd gotten the message the first time I read the book. And I did. I understood it, but I didn't quite feel it. And I'm now in a spot right now. Basically rereading it confirmed what I've been really focused on for the last few months. It's just this shift in mindset because, and you just hit on something that, you know, they're not going to buy from you just because you're a nice guy. And I like to think that generally I'm a nice guy in a television world where you don't know what's real and what's fake. I've always prided myself on when people say to me, hey, you're the same guy off camera that we see on TV. Yes, that's exactly what I want. For better, worse, whether you like it, don't like it, this is who I am. And I don't love to play the game a whole lot, so to speak. But what I found, and I'll just be open and raw here because I think people can learn from it, that as I started networking when I began my speaking business, joined NSA, which you know all about, and all those things, National Speakers Association, that I understood that I was starting not from a completely unknown name, that people within our community maybe were watching. And I'd go out and I'd network. And it was so easy to tell them my background and my story. And they were very interested in it because not a lot of people have a TV job like I have. It is, if you're a sports fan, or it's different.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not your normal 9-to-5 job. It's not, you know, your teacher, your doctor, your nurse, your lawyer. There's a perception that it's something. It may not be what you think it is, but it's different. It's unique. So it was really easy conversation starter. But then it always ended up with, hey, if you know anybody, hey, if you have anything for me. And it's like, have I ever really spent enough time listening to what their needs are and even seeing if there's alignment? People want to be heard. People want to know that you care and that you're interested in them, which I did, by the way. I mean, I was, but I never led with that. I was always leading with myself, not to be selfish, just because they enjoyed it. It was eisy, but it wasn't getting me. Does that make sense? Like,
oh gosh, it makes total sense.
It was a crutch.
Yeah.
So I wonder about that though, because I think that the challenge, and this was the challenge for Joe in the book, and it took him, you know, the better part of a week, a number of days hanging out with Pindar and all these people, that there's usually yeah, but I don't have time for that because I'm on a deadline. I've got a quota to meet. I've got a number to meet. So how do people get past that and trust that that giving piece, being the go-giver, actually will help them get to where they want to go, and leading with that first?
Yeah, well, first, for them to do that, they've got to understand why it's beneficial to them
Mm.
to do that, right? Because if someone is doing something a certain way and having a modicum of success, and then they're told, well, there's a different way, a better way, it might be, no, the way I'm doing it's working pretty well. And like you said, besides, I don't have time to do all this stuff. So first, someone has to really understand why it is of benefit to them to make that shift in focus. And by the way, to understand that that investment of time is going to pay off big time for them. And it doesn't have to, the funny thing is, it doesn't have to take a long time for that to happen. What you do is you go for the singles, and you sacrifice bunt, you hit the sacrifice fly, and you do those little things, steal a base, and all of a sudden the grand slam comes, when you didn't expect, when you're just trying to meet the ball. So, really it's doing those things are going to add to your success, and the time is going to be very, very, well spent, well invested.
You both write in this first book about the 5 laws and talk about value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. Is there one that you see that people struggle with more? Is it all of them? What's the biggest challenge?
Biggest one is receptivity.
Mm.
And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the negative messages that society, hits us with on a constant basis. So much of this is it's not outright, but you see it in everything. Even when a good friend of mine, Randy Gage, who is one of the foremost prosperity authorities in the world, he does this fantastic vignette about movies that if you notice any successful movie, there are typically 2 types of characters. There is the good person. There are the good people who are usually portrayed as being poor and struggling, but honest and so forth. But they're always, then there's the other character who they're always being taken advantage of, stepped on, stepped around, stepped over, the evil rich person, right? The greedy business person or whatever, who, is ruthless and horrible and terrible and whatever. There are generally those 2 types of people, and he points out these different movies where you can see this. Now, there's nothing conspiratorial about this. It's not that the producers or directors are necessarily trying to do that. It's just what sells. It's what sells. But he gives us great example. I think this is such a wonderful example. If you remember the movie, the first Spider-Man movie, Peter Parker and his Uncle Joe, not Uncle Ben, excuse me, Uncle Ben, are in the living room talking about, being poor. And Uncle Ben says these words. He says, "Peter, we may not be rich, but at least we're honest." What a horrible, terrible message for some 12 or 13-year-old boy or girl to see, right? Because what is the premise there? That if you're a good, honest person, you've got no chance of being financially successful. And that if you are financially successful, you must have done something dishonest. And I say, well, wait a second, Berg, that's one movie. No, it's actually pretty much every movie and every TV show and every book and whatever, and what you see everywhere when you see people saying get rid of all the millionaires or billionaires, or and you see all and hear all these things. So this gets into people's unconscious. Now, if it was just in their conscious, it'd be okay, because you can deal with that, you can battle that. But when something's in the unconscious or the subconscious, you don't even know it's there, and you cannot overcome a problem that you don't realize you have. So when someone grows up with this mindset, even though they don't even know they have it, now as they get older and they start bringing value to others and bringing value to the world and doing those things and starting to earn some money, well, now there's a conflict there, because if they've been raised consciously to be honest and good and kind and thoughtful and this and that, and yet they're making a lot of money, which subconsciously means they've been dishonest and brutal and horrible to other, whatever. Now there's a battle that goes on between the conscious and the unconscious. And when it comes to that battle, the unconscious always wins, right? So people will push away the prosperity that they've earned. Okay. They'll sabotage themselves, or they'll do this or do that. And so it makes it very difficult. And that's one reason why I truly believe. And, in the book, John and I, in the fifth law, was about receptivity. But, it's a parable. So you can only cover that to a certain extent. I'm a big believer in making a study of prosperity and seeking out those people like Randy Gage, like Sharon Lecter, like Ellen Rogan, like the late Bob Proctor, David Nagel, Lisa Peterson, Ken Honda, these people who they talk and they write on and they teach prosperity mindset. And to read their blogs, watch their videos, read their books, because there's so much anti-prosperity garbage that comes in all the time. We need to be able to seek out and consciously put that clean pro-prosperity thinking into our heads and into our hearts.
Okay, before I get to my baseball theme questions, I want to ask you, but it's a little bit baseball-y as well. That's always a word I like to make up, baseball-y, but really anything, all sports, business, we have been trained to keep score for everything. And by the way, people say to me, why do you keep score of every game? Because I got a post-game show to do, and I want to look down at my scorecard and know everything that happened. And that's the way I take notes, and I got my own system. So yes, there is a great function to it, but there's also within the book where you talk about not keeping score, about keeping score in business. Can you explain that? Because again, we've been wired to be measured by that, and we don't measure the meaning in the relationships and the giving and the value that we're adding.
Yeah, well, Joel, it really comes down to context, because there's a time and place to keep score. In baseball, in sports, you keep score. Okay. If you have a certain goal to meet, you keep score. So you can do that. Fine. What it was Sam, that was the chapter on the law of influence. Sam in the story was talking to Joe, who was the protege in the story, about, the danger of keeping score when it comes to relationships. Because if you add value to another person's life, and really you're keeping score and saying, okay, I did this for them, they owe me this and that, the energy, and again, this is not woo-woo stuff, this is just how this is life, okay? The energy you're putting out there actually causes this person to kind of a little bit, to feel defensive, or to feel as though they're obligated, and that's not a good place to be coming from. What you want to do is just provide value to others, because that's what you want to do. It's who you are. And this is what Sam explained. It's who you are. And because it's who you are, it's what you do. Now, again, we don't want to in any way confuse us. When we talk about in law number 3, the law of influence, placing other people's interests first. No, not in a self-sacrificial way, not in a martyrish way, not in a doormatty way. It's simply understanding, as Joe learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, of life, really, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely and authentically moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus. As Sam explained to Joe, making your win all about the other person's win. You can't do that and keep score.
Okay, so with that said, it's so profound, it's so brilliant. Let's go to the baseball themed questions. I know you're a baseball guy. So what's the biggest home run you've hit? Because really, well, to me, at least, a home run doesn't have to be what we call a grand slam or the biggest home run moment ever. It could be something small too. But what about for you? What's a home run that you've hit professionally?
Yeah, I think the home run is the success John and I have seen with the Go Giver, having sold about close to 1.5 million copies now. So I'd say that's the home run probably.
By the way, if you're listening and you haven't read this, it's never too late. And I'll say that because it's just, I know if you're not a reader, then it's some people listen, some people consume in different ways. This is such a quick read; you'll get lost in the story. It's such a beautiful story
Thank you.
can be life-changing. It really can, and it'll get you thinking. How about a swing and a miss along the way?
It is on Audible, by the way, too. So if they're listeners, they can listen to it on Audible.
But either way, I mean, my point is if you don't read because you get stuck, like I'll start a book and then not finish it for a year and then pick another, and sometimes it is Audible, but it's such a quick and fun read to be able to do. So I just want to encourage people on that one. And if you've read it already and it's been a while, it's a good refresh. I believe it was for me. How about a swing and a miss? And what did you learn from it?
Oh man, there's been so many swings and misses. I would have to say it was when the internet really began to become a thing back in the late 1990s, and I just did not want it to be, because I had at that time had built my business up to a really good place, and I just enjoyed it as it was. And you know what? I knew these changes were coming, that my clients were getting more onto the internet, but you know what? I knew it and I didn't do anything about it, and it really, really hurt my business. And the lesson was, Burg, I know you don't like change, okay, but it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You've got to do it when it's appropriate.
Yeah. AI is here. It's a whole other discussion, by the way. That doesn't mean you go all in on AI, but if you're going to completely skip it, you better be done with the career and life. And, there comes a certain point where we're all allowed to do that. But otherwise, okay, that's a whole nother discussion. How about small ball too? Every bit of this is small ball. You talked about the bunts, the sacrifice. I don't need to explain to you what small ball is, but I'll let you explain what it is to you.
I think what it is it's doing those daily things, and it's doing it consistently. Okay. That single is reading in the morning. That single is posting on LinkedIn in the morning. That single is writing my next daily impact email newsletter. That single is making that phone call to a prospect. That single is the follow-up, So I think it's those daily things that if we just keep doing that and just worry about making contact, you're going to get the home runs. They're going to come.
No doubt about it. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to players, the star of the game, that hit the homer, and they almost always say, I wasn't trying to hit a home run. Sometimes they are, but for the most part, because of the right process. Okay, 4 final questions. We'll go quick here as we round the bases. First one, I know you have a lot of causes, a lot of giving, which is similar to this, but could be a little bit different too. That's a whole nother discussion about what we're talking about. But I just want to ask you about your involvement with animal rescue and why that's been so important to you.
I just, grew up with animals. We always had animals, and I just love them, all of them, not just dogs and cats and so forth, but all animals. I think it's terrible the way, people have treated animals and abused them, and I don't even want to, but so I do my best, just to be able to, with giving time, money, fostering, whatever, all the different things. And so I'm just lucky to be involved with different groups that they're the ones who do the real hard work. I'm just there to help. But so it's a cause dear to my heart.
Okay. Second question. You talked about the writing series of books. I mean, everybody starts with The Go-Giver, but there are more too. Let my audience know a little bit about the other books, the courses. There are a lot of ways for people to be able to consume and get involved.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So there's the Go-Giver, which is the first one. The second one is Go-Givers Sell More. This is the only one that's not a parable. It's a more of an application guide to the Go-Giver. Then there is the Go-Giver Leader, the Go-Giver Influencer, and that's probably my favorite book of the series. That's all about people skills. Yeah. And then John and his wife Anna wrote a separate parable called the Go-Giver Marriage. Which they did a wonderful. It's half parable, half how-to, and they did a great job with that. At my website at burg.com, you can subscribe to my daily impact email. I send that out Monday through Friday, and we have different courses. We have the Go-Giver Success Academy Vault, the Go-Giver Vault, and so forth. So we invite people to come to the site and hang out and have some fun.
I need to do that. I'm going to do that. Third question as we round the bases, just my standpoint here. When I read that, and I told you I've been really focused on this in the last 3-4 months, and I'm feeling it. So it was exactly what I needed. It makes me excited. Again, not woo-woo, not blind faith, but it makes me excited by doing the right things of what I can't see yet. And and I wonder if you still have that feeling as well with some of what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so lucky. I love my work. I mean, I'm 67 and I'm not about to retire. I mean, I'm not on the road speaking anymore, so I don't get on airplanes, and not for the last 3 years haven't done that. I do, virtual keynotes and so forth, but I never liked the travel part of it. I'm a homebody, so so I'm not on the road, but I'm far from retired. I'm still writing, speaking, doing interviews, all these things. I just have fun every day.
Okay, last question. We'll go lighthearted here. We talk so much about giving and receiving, for that matter. The Go Giver. Check out the book if you haven't. Check out the other books. Go to the website. What do you do to relax or have fun? I've learned that you do like baseball. You got the great Josh Gibson shirt on. What does Bob Burg away from work enjoy doing?
I'm really a fairly boring. No, not fairly. I'm a boring person. I really am. I mean, I'll read a book, and just me, and right now I just have one cat, Buddy the cat, who's of course a rescue, and he and I just hang out and read, and that's really what I love to do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't have a more exciting answer for you, but I'm really that is kind of just me.
Well, there's something nice about that simplicity as well. And I think more importantly, the amount of good that both of you have done in putting this incredible book out into the world many years ago. And I know it's got to be incredibly humbling to see the effect that it still has on people all over the world. Include me in that group as well. It really is life-changing, and it goes against everything that we hear, but yet makes so much sense once you get it. So Bob, I really want to thank you for your time, for your graciousness with your time, because I know that in giving, you give so much of your time to so many people like me and others. Congratulations on all the success, continued success, and thank you for spending time today.
Thank you, and you as well. Appreciate you.
It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.